future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Thank you.
What's up?
Hey, thank you to all of our fans across the country and around the world. Welcome to another edition of Focus with Ron Frierson. I am your host, Mr. Ron Frierson. To my left, I have my brother, Mr. Woody Wilson. What's up, Woody?
What's up, Ron? I'm glad you made it in, man. I know you just got off a plane.
Yeah, I just got in from San Francisco,
nice.
taking care of some business, and
I
could not miss this show because we had a pretty exciting week in politics. And so let's just get right to it.
Let's get into it.
Everyone knows that my show always starts with me and my quote-unquote rant. And basically, it's simple, and it's something that we all have been wondering is whether or not Donald Trump is for real. I think he is for real, and I think he's really crazy. I think the man has an issue with women.
Everybody.
And I wonder, how deep-seated of an issue this is. It's because I hear him talking about his dad. We've all heard on the news and and reading his story how he inherited anywhere from $1 million to $14 million from his father to start his empire, so to speak.
Right.
I never hear much about Donald Trump's mother. It would be interesting to hear what type of relationship he had with his mom.
Is she still alive, or she's gone now?
I'm not certain. That's something we ought to just do some homework on to see what the relationship is between Donald Trump and his mother, because maybe that will explain some things in regards to his view towards women. I want to say what I would like to think in my cynical mind is that these are trumped up things. I shouldn't use the word trumped up.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, no pun intended. But these are things that maybe the media just throws out there to make him look bad. But they don't do anything to make him look bad. He does it to himself.
Yeah, you heard about the 3 a.m. text messages, right?
Yeah, so like I said, I just got back from San Francisco, and this morning I turned on the news, and I see all the stuff about Trump's Twitter tirade beginning at 3 a.m. Eastern time, where he's just pretty much doubling down on his remarks about Alicia Mercado, I believe is her last name, the former Miss Universe, and the disparaging things he said about her 20 years ago, how it's come back to haunt him, and he's chiming in on that. He's chiming on Hillary. He's doing this at 3 a.m. There's something wrong with him. I don't even think in our worst imagination we could imagine President Obama just going on Twitter tirades at 3 a.m. and just talking about tabloid nonsense, whatever it is. It's really strange. And again, I don't begrudge anyone of their right to vote, and it's their right, and whoever you want to vote for, you vote your conscience. But if you are really a true Republican, I don't see how you would even want to count Donald Trump as one amongst you, because he's just that off the hinge. I mean, he's something different. I don't think he's a Republican. He's definitely not a Democrat. I think he's just a egotistical narcissist that cannot control the stuff that comes out of his mouth. Case in point, the debate. So let's go over the debate. I want to talk about the debate.
Are you doing your rant, or can I chime in at any point?
Oh, you can chime in at any point.
Okay.
But before, because I want to hear from some of the listeners too, if you guys want to join in. I want to hear what you think about the debate. I want to hear what you think about Trump's relationship with women and how he tends to have a history of saying, really, he doesn't have any respect. He doesn't seem to have much respect. And that says a lot about a man if you can't respect a woman. Anyway, you can give us a call at area code 323-843-2826. Again, 323-843-2826. Okay, so Woody, tell me what you thought about the debate.
Well, obviously Hillary was much more presidential. She showed herself to be a potential presidential candidate or office, that she could hold the office of president of the United States. Mm-hmm. Trump, I think this is all a business deal for Trump. Trump is in front of the cameras. He can demand a press conference at the drop of a hat. And he is just potentially building his brand, which I think he's having the reverse effect because I myself no longer play golf at Trump National, and I refuse to ever play golf at Trump National, as well as my friends. But I think in the long run it's going to hurt his brand. But I think in the short term, he's thinking that somehow this is going to build his brand and build him up as the premier businessman. So I don't really take him seriously anymore. I think the guy is, and all those that do, I just don't understand, where they're coming from.
I don't either.
I get the fact that we need to bring jobs back to America, and some of the things he says hits home with all of us. But the point of the matter is that this guy is he's a loose cannon, and to have him in the office as the president of the United States, I think is a gross mistake.
I was replying to a friend of mine, Jill. She wrote me through Facebook, and she was saying something, asking me what I thought about the debates. And one of the biggest things I really think is that, and I equated it to something I love, which is music, and how we're in a single-driven market, and you don't get albums anymore.
Did you say albums?
Albums, yeah.
What are those?
Exactly. So I was saying, when you vote for a president, you're voting for everything that president is bringing to the table. You're voting for everything. I don't agree with everything President Obama has done, but I approve of that album. I love that album. Now, there may be certain things on it, certain songs on it that I don't necessarily agree with.
This is Trump's album?
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about President Obama. So same thing with Trump. So Trump may have a couple songs on his album, so to speak.
LPs.
This is all metaphorical. So on his album, so to speak, there may be a couple songs I like. I like what he says about trade. Okay. I also like, to a certain extent, what he says about us being involved in so many foreign wars. But those are just 2 tracks on an entire album.
So you wouldn't buy the album?
The rest of his album sucks terribly.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So I think that what happens sometimes is that because some people just really hate Hillary, they will latch on to a couple of those songs on the Trump album that sound pretty good, that speak to whatever they think their needs are, and try to extrapolate that for the entirety of what it would be to be underneath a Trump administration.
Right.
And then on the flip side, they may not like a couple of things about Hillary, whether it's because she voted for the Iraq War, or whether it's because or the emails. So they'll take a couple songs that are not so good on her album, and then paint the whole album that way. When you compare the 2 albums, her album's a whole lot better.
Well, her album, and she's had 12 albums versus 1 album. I mean,
Absolutely.
She's been around for 30 years, and he's just dropped an album. So
yeah,
you really have to look at the history of the candidates, and Hillary has a history of trying to affect change. I mean, she's dedicated her life to it. I mean, Hillary was not always wealthy. I mean, like anything, folks, if you spend 20 years developing a business, 20 years developing relationships or whatever it is, you'll start to make money at the end. That's why young folks, you can't just go into work and start a business and be rich right away. It takes time to develop it. And so she is, she's due the rewards of putting in the time. And, if you look at her track record, you can really make a solid determination of who the best candidate is versus Donald Trump. Look at his track record. Yeah. Look at hers.
Yeah, and with
and make
this,
your decision.
and when it comes to the presidency, I don't look at it as something that someone deserves. I look at more so is who is qualified for the position, who would be the best caretaker of the legacy that comes along with being the president of the most powerful country on the planet. And if you look at them, there's so many things that go into that. Whenever a president speaks, that president speaks not only to the people in the room, not only to the people in that community or for our country, they speak to the world. And because whenever a president speaks, policy is formed not only here, but also in other countries that have some sort of relationship with the United States. They try to position themselves in order to interact with this policy that's coming forth from the United States president, whether it's trade policy. So let's just say Donald Trump is saying this stuff about trade, that he's saying he's going to cut off trade here and cut off trade there, or he's going to make this NATO ally pay for this or pay for that. So that means that on the other side of the pond, those parties and those governments, they need to start preparing themselves. Okay, if Trump comes into office, this is how we're going to have to position ourselves to protect ourselves from this, from that, from that. This is why it's so important with what presidents say. let's just say that he would start to charge, let's say he would start to charge Germany, who's a NATO ally,
Right.
and saying, okay, we're not going to cover Germany anymore unless they start paying us. So then maybe Germany say, okay, we need to be prepared that just in case, especially since the polls are tight, just in case Trump wins, we're going to have to not to start building up our own military, because there's a chance that the United States may try to charge us, or other things that they're helping us with in regards to counterterrorism or fighting in Syria or whatever. They're helping us around the globe, because there are a lot of coalitions. They could say, you know what, we're going to have to scale back on that, because if we scale back on that, we need to reserve our resources for things that affect us.
So what you're
more
saying
directly.
is that the words that come out of the leader of the free world's mouth, potentially the leader of the free world's mouth, affects economies across the globe.
Economies, militaries, government structures, the international relationships between nations, the balance of power between nations, economics, trade, all that stuff. So now just think, if you got a nim-witted jerk,
Donald Trump,
who is prone to say anything or tweet anything, who's up at 3 a.m. tweeting. I mean, think about it. That's so unprecedented. You couldn't even imagine. You couldn't imagine Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, maybe Bill,
Barack Obama.
Barack. You couldn't imagine. You couldn't even imagine Hillary. You can't imagine a serious adult. You can imagine a teenager, a temperamental teenager. You can imagine that person just going off and saying stuff. But a serious adult planning to be the
who's running
chief,
for the office
Yeah.
of the United States of America.
planning to be the commander-in-chief of our military forces, who's so easily riled up by tabloid stuff, or who creates tabloid stuff. And the stuff with women, man,
Well, women, Mexicans, African Americans. I think folks forget that, he paid the legal fees for the guy that punched that black protester in the face when he was being removed by the police as he was climbing the steps on his way out of the convention center, wherever they were. The guy came out of nowhere, punched the black guy in the face, and Donald Trump paid his bills, paid his legal bills.
Yeah, whether he was black, Mexican, or something, the simple fact that
he was black. He got punched in the face.
I'm
by
saying
a white
that
guy,
whether or not he was
Donald
black,
Trump paid the
exactly.
bills.
But the point is that whether or not the guy he punched was black, Mexican, white, whatever, the simple fact that a presidential candidate would condone violence, that in itself is already terrible, and then you add that little racial element onto it, that's just icing on the cake. So Jarvis, I sent you a video. I think this is the video with Donald Trump speaking about the young lady, I believe, that the Mexican, not Mexican, but Venezuelan former Miss Universe. Did I send you a video on that? Play that video and let's comment on it afterwards.
The point is, that happened 20 years ago. That is not important now. I know what I lived with him, and he knows too. And he was really aggressive. He was really rude. He was a bad person with me. And that is the story that I need to share for my community.
When you said
we can't accept more insults for my Latin community. No more insults.
Okay, so that's a little excerpt of Alicia Mercado, who's the former Miss Universe back when Donald Trump was running the Miss Universe pageant. And Donald Trump, when she was 18 or 19 at the time, that's when she won. The reason all this stuff has come to light again, because it was obviously spoken about back 20 years ago, was because Hillary brought this up during the debate. Well, anyway, Donald Trump, in one of his many tirades against women, he likes to bring up women's weight as if he's walking around here looking like a perfect image of health. Anyway, so he was speaking with her about her, calling her Miss Piggy, called her Miss Housekeeper, making disparaging remarks about her weight, making disparaging remarks about her ethnicity, and doing so publicly. And she also mentioned some other little racial stuff that he would say from time to time. And this is not the first time we've heard Donald Trump speak, in a negative way about women. and which really doesn't sit well with me. I mean, it shouldn't sit well with most real men when you have someone speaking this ill of women. And I'm even talking about. I even have a problem with it in rap music, but that's just me. But long story short is that when you have someone who wants to be the president of the United States who clearly has issues with women, I say again, I've never heard Donald Trump talking about his mother. I've heard him speak about maybe he has some old Citizen Kane stuff going on. Maybe he has a Rosebud deal. He's Charles Foster Kane, and his mom abandoned him when he was a kid, or he has some bad things happen to him. So
it'd be interesting to find out.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know what his Rosebud is. But yeah, it's I'm not sure what's going on with him. But this is not normal for a man to have this many run-ins with women, and to seem to really get off on objectifying women. And remember the stuff he said about Megyn Kelly, the Fox host that moderated.
Yeah, maybe she's bleeding wherever else she's bleeding.
Yeah, that. He's close friends with Roger Ailes, who's the former chief over at Fox News, who we know
fired, right?
Fired and had a lot of issues in regards to sexual harassment.
Lost a lawsuit.
Yeah, and he also said that Trump said that if his own daughter were in a situation wherein she was sexually harassed, he just said, "I hope that she would find another place to work." It's just this weird type of deal with him and women.
And it's not anything that we're revealing to the public that they don't already know.
Yeah.
Or folks that are potentially going to vote for Donald Trump that don't already know.
That's the weird thing.
That's
like
the weird thing about
all this stuff about it.
It's clearly identified. All the information is over the internet. It's on television. There's no hidden agenda. You know what he's about. And yet people are still backing him. I don't know if these polls can be truly tested. I mean, the polls when Obama was running again for re-election were kind of scary, and it was a landslide victory. But, listen, you folks, you got to vote. You got to register to vote. I'm telling you, this will change your whole life if Donald Trump, whole world, it would change the whole world if Donald Trump is elected.
Yeah, but these are all things that everyone knows. So, but what we have to realize is that Hillary didn't do much the past debate, in my opinion, but she didn't have to.
She didn't have to.
Exactly, that's the key.
There wasn't much on policy.
So she kind of won on default because
she kept her mouth closed.
She let Donald Trump dig himself a hole. She let him be down. In the beginning, I think he started off pretty strong because in the beginning he was speaking about trade policies. He was talking about Washington ineptness, how they can't get anything done.
Right.
But then, as time went on, he can only go with the stuff he studied for so long,
man.
Before he starts to, he just can't help himself.
In the beginning, I was listening to Donald Trump. In the beginning of the debate, I'm like, oh snap!
Exactly.
He's making.
He's making
goodness,
sense.
Is he going to change my? And then all of a sudden, boom!
I was thinking
he came back to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
If he could stick to the script,
exactly,
we could be having a totally different conversation right now.
If we had a 10-minute debate.
Yeah.
Then he would probably have won a 10-minute debate.
Right.
But the way that I've never seen so many interruptions and he spoke a hell of a lot more than Hillary did. He kept trying to get his point across. He'll put his fingers up like this. He'd be like, excuse me, and he'll keep talking.
Yeah. That's what makes me smart. I'm smart because I don't pay taxes.
So,
what does that say about the rest of us?
Yeah. So the stuff, these things in regards to the taxes.
And how does a guy whose salary is $600 million, his personal income, not pay taxes, federal taxes?
Yeah, I think that
the system is screwed up.
Yeah. He may have been exposed there on their front. I think they may have got onto something in regards to that. So he
hasn't revealed his taxes yet.
Yeah,
to the public.
But I think that's why he hasn't revealed his taxes. It's not because of anything like nefarious, like he was cheating. I think he probably did it by legal means, but it's pretty evident that he just doesn't pay taxes.
Well, that's been announced. Everyone knows that. So there's got to be something nefarious. There's got to be something that's in his taxes that is alarming, and he doesn't want anyone to know. I mean, there has to be some dealings with Putin, because he praises Putin. I mean, they probably have invested in a hotel together. Who knows?
You never know. You never know. But I just never seen somebody that's so obviously self-centered. And I mean, because usually with a president, they, right or wrong, they have like a core in them that wants what's best for America. And I mean,
there's checks and balances. There's no checks and balances in his.
Well, his thing is that I don't know. I don't. More so than my argument is this: is that I don't see a core in him. I don't see how someone who's been in it for himself just about his entire life will now turn around and be a champion for everyone else when he's been the type of guy that's been getting over on everyone else.
You're right.
How can a guy that's been getting over on everyone and that's just who they are?
He can't.
You know?
He can't.
So how can he just switch up? And
he
then,
can't.
Yeah.
He can't. He's pretending, and we see all the flaws, but he can't.
Yeah. So a lot of my friends that are Donald Trump supporters, they probably don't like hearing this stuff because, and I get it, because that's their guy. I don't understand why it's their guy.
I don't understand either, folks.
And the thing is that
can they explain to you why he's your guy?
I want a real Republican. I think we need a Republican option. I don't like one party to automatically. When you automatically assume something, it's like somebody that you just take for granted. You know, it's just going to be there. It's not the same. I don't want anyone to take my vote for granted that they think just because of my ethnicity that I'm always going to vote for them, whether or not they even, like, it's almost like, well, where else you going to go? You know, the other side can't stand you, so you're just going to stay here. So I want to say enough for
the Republican
to get you to vote, to turn out to vote for me.
Yeah.
But then once I get in office, I'm just going to keep it status quo. And plus, you don't have any alternative. Where else you going to go?
I'm a registered independent, and you know, I'd like to look at both sides of the fence. Every year, there's each time there's an election or an election year, and you know, Donald Trump just doesn't fit the bill for anything, whether he's Republican or Democrat. He just doesn't fit the bill for the leader of the free world. Period. You know, there's not even a conversation to be had about it, and so the only alternative is Hillary Clinton. You know, and where does that leave us? Well, I think Barack Obama has left quite a legacy. He's done some fabulous things, and she can build on those. And Donald Trump has some good points. Bernie Sanders had many good points. And I hope that, you know, in the world of politics, you know, the way it's supposed to work is everyone takes these great ideas and they implement them and they make it happen, and we move the country forward. But I'm afraid with Donald Trump, he's got his own agenda, which we're not even sure what that agenda is because he flip-flops all the time.
Dude is crazy.
He's got a clear history of flip-flopping. And I just, you know, I'm confused by him. So
I'm confused as to why. I mean, if so, I want to say why. Why is he not so transparent? And I have very smart friends who are Trump supporters.
He's got something to hide.
I mean, I'm just why is he still being supported? I mean, I just don't get. I understand the quote unquote fringe groups that latch onto him because he's.
You mean the uneducated white men that they say is a large majority of his followers?
But there's a lot.
I mean,
of,
that's what CNN and Fox News say.
I don't like when they put like. I mean,
that's what they say. The group of people.
Well, that's what they say because the media, what they like to do is that it makes it easier for them to explain when they lump everybody.
Well,
in
I would
one
hope
group.
they're uneducated folks because you can't have much sense to follow.
But even some uneducated folks have common sense, and any common sense person can see that something's wrong with this guy. You don't have to have the greatest education. There's some uneducated people who are rich as I don't know what,
and they're very educated people. It has nothing to do with finances.
Yeah.
So
so let's just say this. Other than the base element that he's tried to appeal to when he was talking about Mexicans and the stuff he said about African Americans. So that means some of the racist element, he's going to get them fine. Okay, if they're on the fringes already. But I mean like the smarter people, and I don't mean smart in regards to educational attainment. I mean just common sense. And the people that are normally Republicans and normally wouldn't vote for Democrats, but they ought to be able to see plainly that he's not a Republican. He's not him. I was saying earlier.
He is not a Republican.
No.
He is not.
Like I was saying earlier,
Republican.
I want a Republican because I want two parties to compete with ideas and policies for my vote. I don't like the simple fact that one party pretty much has us in a lock. and because that means that whether we can't put pressure on them, whether or not only with the turnout, whether or not policies are actually implemented. I like options. It's the same way that the majority of the United States has options. I like for my subset to have options as well.
Well, yeah, I thought Gary Johnson would be one of those options, but he can't even remember. He can't even. This guy can't remember names.
He smokes too much weed.
He does.
Yeah,
I think
he smokes too much weed.
He probably smoked Cali.
Yeah, he must. Yeah, he probably got
Cali weed.
He probably got Cali
Hanging
coming
with
to him.
Dr. Dre or something.
Yeah, he's doing something different.
Yeah.
I mean, his vice presidential nominee, his vice presidential running mate, I should say, is probably has a little more gravitas than he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And that's unfortunate. I mean,
yeah.
I just can't continue to listen to someone that can't.
Yeah.
Does not know, basics in terms of policy and not about policy, but just world events.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Real quick, I want to throw out our first shot of the day with Hope. I hear a little video feedback, Jarvis. The Russians are hacking.
But the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming.
That may be Woody. You have your laptop volume up? Yeah, you did, didn't you?
No.
Woody just.
That was your phone.
No, it wasn't.
I saw you reaching over there. You trying to be slick.
I was looking for it, but it wasn't. Well, anyway, I was going to say that that's you. That's you, Woody. I can hear it. Yeah, that's definitely you, Wood.
That's
Come on,
not me, man.
Quit throwing stuff and shade on the show. So what I was going to say is that
shade on the show.
No, I had to talk about Hope for Adam.
Okay.
Hope for Adam. Okay, so everyone knows that my good friend Adam Kreef is in need of a bone marrow transplant, and we've had a huge global movement in trying to get people out to donate and to provide samples, hoping that we will find a match for Adam. The effort continues. It's ratcheted up quite a bit. Kim Kardashian actually sent out a tweet and through social media asking for people to donate and support the Hope for Adam movement. This is Kim Kardashian that did that. Also, Anderson Cooper, the newscaster from CNN, did the same thing. He tweeted out Hope for Adam. It's gotten huge. If you haven't been tested to become a bone marrow donor, please do so today. Go to join.hopeforadam.com. That's hope, the number 4adam.com. Join.hopeforadam.com. Go and get tested and see whether or not you could be a donor. And if you match for Adam, that'll be fantastic. I will thank you for it. The entire Kreef will thank you for it. There's hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people that will thank you for it. If you're not a match for Adam, then maybe you'll be a match for someone else. Adam used to play basketball with me, and his dad plays basketball. His dad is actually one of my closest friends. Played basketball, and his younger brother Jordan played basketball with me. And he's a healthy, normal guy one day, and then the next day, he needs a bone marrow transplant to save his life. That's just how fast things can happen in life, and you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
And then if God forbid anything happened like that in your life or to one of your loved ones, you will want someone to step up and take a test like this to see whether or not there'll be a match for a donor, because life can change in a split second, and before you know it, and if without your health you don't have anything. So we have an opportunity to give Adam his health back. So let's do it. Let's just everyone go out there and it's real simple. You have to be between the ages of 18 and 44. Basically, all they do is give you a cotton swab to the cheek, and then after a few days, they'll test it, and if it's a match, you'll get a call. If not, they'll just go into a bank, and hopefully one day you'll be a match for someone else. So thank you for your support. Continue, Adam. You know I love you. Me and Woody both love you, and I'm with you 1,000%. Okay?
Good luck, Adam.
Good luck.
We'll find a donor.
Okay. So I was looking at some information and found out that the president had the first time in his presidency, his veto has been overridden by Congress.
Oh, yeah. Check that out.
And this is for the I want to say JASTA law, which was essentially the 9/11 families after the 9/11 report, and it seems as if some members within the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had some involvement with some of the 9/11 attackers or with the plot as a whole. and they want to be able to sue them. And there's international agreements and international immunity for sovereign governments, so that a private person can't sue a government of another land. Okay, so anyway, the 9/11 families, and this was led by Chuck Schumer, a Democratic senator out of New York. They wanted to pass a law, just pretty much negating that, to allow private citizens to sue the Saudi Arabian country, the kingdom,
for their involvement in 9/11.
For their involvement. So the president voted this down. So if
vetoed it,
he vetoed. Yeah, he voted it down. He vetoed it once it hit his desk. So when he vetoed it, obviously people are up in arms and they're saying, well, how could you go against 9/11 families? This is not something you should do. You should be a patriot and you should support 9/11 families.
And it had unanimous support in the Congress. Right?
And it had unanimous support in the Congress. But I'm going to let President Obama speak on it himself, and then we're going to talk about it after this clip. You got this clip, Jarvis? Okay, play that for us.
And the problem with that is that if we eliminate this notion of sovereign immunity, then our men and women in uniform around the world could potentially start seeing ourselves subject to reciprocal laws. And the concern that I've had has nothing to do with Saudi Arabia per se or my sympathy for 9/11 families. It has to do with me not wanting a situation in which we're suddenly exposed to liabilities for all the work that we're doing all around the world, and suddenly finding ourselves subject to the private lawsuits in courts where we don't even know exactly whether they're on the up and up in some cases. So this is it's a dangerous precedent, and it's an example of why sometimes you have to do what's hard. And frankly, I wish Congress here had done what's hard. I didn't expect it, because voting, if you're perceived as voting against 9/11 families right before an election, not surprising.
Yeah, so that's the gist of it.
I don't understand why Congress doesn't see through his eyes. I mean, the fact, what we did in Iraq, we certainly, if families have the ability to sue countries for wrongdoing, we are certainly going to have our asses sued by families of Iraq. We are setting a precedent here that is a very dangerous precedent. And I don't understand why Congress does not see that.
Well, it's a couple of things, because for their political expediency. But yeah, so think about it. So a lot of friends out there say, "Oh, he should have supported 9." This is deeper than the 9/11.
No, it's not about the families.
It's not about the 9/11. So don't let Fox News or whoever
say he doesn't care about you and all of that.
This is what it is. This is what it is exactly. So we are in so many other countries. Our soldiers are based in other countries.
All over the world.
We're all over the world. It's easy, and it's happened in the past, wherein Americans have slipped up in other countries. Or let's just think about the stuff that we don't talk about much, which are the drone attacks and the things like that, where we go in
collateral damage.
The collateral damage that comes when we bomb a certain place looking for someone, and we end up killing a family by mistake.
They just open up a can of worms right there.
Bro. If they allow for this to happen, where sovereign immunity no longer takes hold, then that means that not only would we have the temporary satisfaction of being able to sue Saudi Arabia, but those families can sue Saudi Arabia for what happened with 9/11, but now all the countries we're involved in and all the things we do around the globe that we may not know about, now we're able to be sued for all of the stuff in the court of law. That's not good. And what's funny is that I read an article when I was in the airport today saying that Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, they now have buyer's remorse, and they're going to go and take a second look at
How
this.
do they have they did not understand what law they were passing?
I don't think
How
they
did
did.
they have buyer's remorse all of a sudden? They didn't understand.
They didn't think about it. A lot
the
of
president
them don't.
did not stand before them and say, "Listen, folks, before you vote on this, these could be the repercussions."
I think
What's going on over there?
think some of it has to do with politics. See, because none of them in a political year, right before they're going home to try to hunt for votes, none of them want to be able to say that, okay, I voted against the 9/11 families, because that's what will be used against them. It's that I voted against the 9/11 family. And that's why the president in that clip says something about it's a hard vote. It's hard.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to do
but
the
it's
tough
a hard
work.
thing.
Yeah, it's a hard job.
So again, it's when you look at it with logical eyes, it's one of those deals wherein the right thing to do.
But these are politicians. I mean, these are people that make laws of the land. They have to understand the repercussions of every vote that they make. That's common sense.
Yes, common sense, but it's also common sense that their own self-preservation skills, so to speak. Self-preservation is huge for them, because a lot of them, they like the fact that they are in office, and their number one job is to remain in office. That's the only reason you haven't heard John McCain come out and say anything negative against Donald Trump, because he knows that for him to win, he's going to have to still keep those Donald Trump supporters in his pocket, so he can go ahead and just not mention Donald Trump, not say anything bad about Donald Trump. And then once his election is over and he's reelected, then it's okay, because right now he doesn't want to alienate any Republican votes that could possibly go against him, because it could be a backlash. And he remembered his last election, there was someone from the right, I can't remember his name, but he was a right-wing talk show host that actually gave McCain a run for his money in regards to the Senate race down in Arizona. He doesn't want anyone running from his right again. So this same thing with this, if all these different congressmen who have 2-year terms and senators who have 6-year terms, if it's that time of year, they will go in, their rival will go in and say, listen, he voted against funding or voted against 9/11 families. And that would be the soundbite.
But what does it say about the politicians we elect to the offices that they hold? For them not to do what's right for the country, but what's right for themselves.
They've been doing that for a long time, but you're so
right.
What
is wrong with politics? What is wrong with politics? And that's when I like a Donald Trump to stand up and say this is all BS and a lot of things need to change. That's one of the things I like about the guy.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Because it does need to change. And I'm hoping and praying that Hillary, God willing, she wins, adopts some of the policies of Bernie Sanders, and maybe gets as fired up as Donald Trump does about trade, for example. But, the bottom line is, what do we have? A bunch of puppets that are so worried about their self-worth that they don't worry about the rest of the country? And again, if we give Israel $4 billion, $4 billion, instead of helping the inner city schools, what $4 billion could do for the inner city? For education, for new schools, for computers in those schools, for police on every corner.
I got one better for you. How about just cleaning up the water in Flint?
In Flint, Michigan, for example. Why can't we go in there and clean up the water in Flint, Michigan?
Why is that?
Why do we have to give $4 billion to another country and we can't take care of our own country? This is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And these politicians need to be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, well, you said it. We have money floating all across the globe. Some of it goes towards things that benefit our national interest, but taking care of home also benefits our national interest. What's more important than our national interest
than taking care of home?
Exactly. If we can't, if we're going building schools in Pakistan and we're trying to build up stuff in other parts of the globe. And this is this is not an endorsement
for Donald Trump. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but.
Yeah. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I know I did, but I didn't mean to because I'm just sometimes I get a little passionate about this. And then, Donald Trump made a point about reducing corporate taxes down to 15% to have corporations move back to the United States of America, to give jobs to folks who need jobs, like in Detroit, for example, manufacturing. As powerful as the United States of America is, and I know there's this whole make the rich richer or what have you, but that's one of the points that I do like about his policy.
It's not
to bring jobs back to America.
The repatriation of profits and stuff like that. Deloitte, BDO, Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers, these major global accounting firms, trust me when I tell you, they find ways to shelter many of these multinational corporations against taxes. That is not the thing that's going to kill. There's no American no American company that pays a full amount of taxes. I know that personally.
Yeah, Donald
None
Trump
of them.
doesn't pay any tax.
Okay, he doesn't pay any. So this whole deal in regards to, and remember, we're still the largest consumer market.
So what is
on
it?
the planet.
Wages?
Huh?
Is it wages that
It's
cause
cheap
them to go-
labor.
Cheap,
It's
cheap
labor. That's the reason why a lot of things are overseas. It's cheap labor. It has nothing to do with the tax structure for the most part, because there's ways around that. That's why our tax code is hundreds, if not thousands, of pages long. There's ways around the tax issues. There's ways you can shelter this, and you don't have to have the money sitting in an offshore account. Some companies may actually benefit from that, but in mass, writ large, that's not really the issue. The thing is labor, the cost of labor. And because of technology and because of our distribution networks, we can always find cheaper labor somewhere in the globe.
Well,
And
it's a
we always
combination. It's a combination of both, and they could figure out a way to.
The combination is weighed more heavily towards labor. Trust me, it's weighed more heavily towards labor than it is any. Labor is the biggest.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Taxation-
Especially with health insurance and
Taxation
that type of
is
thing, the requirements for health insurance.
Taxation is dependent upon profits. It's dependent upon productivity. It's dependent upon how much money you make, the number of sales, the revenue drive. These are all things that affect what you're liable for in regards to taxation. Whether or not you make money or not, in that regard, because you sell a product, whether or not you're selling a product, you still have to cover payroll. So that means that you still have labor costs. Labor is the number one constant fixed cost in many cases for any company. You can only push so much productivity out of people before you have to hire someone else. It's labor, labor, labor. So if you get cheap labor, that's what they want.
Right.
Even slavery was cheap labor. Everything revolves around cheap
slavery
labor.
was dirt cheap.
Yeah, obviously. That's why they call it slavery. So everything revolves around cheap labor. So all these companies doing stuff around the world, Apple in Asia, or some countries over in Eastern Europe and stuff, they're doing it because that's where they get cheap labor.
Yeah, and then we raise our minimum wage, and that's a result of it. Companies decide they can make more money elsewhere.
That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing, and everyone in economics knows that. The tax issue is an issue, but it's not nearly as big of an issue is labor. So, and that's something really to think about, guys. So when we talk about trade policies and things of that sort, the only way I can see it actually making a difference is if the inequities in labor in regards to scale, somehow they can be offset.
That's
but
one
that's
portion
hard to
of it.
do. If not,
I mean, it is probably one of the biggest pieces of the pie, but that's just one aspect of it.
Well, it's a big aspect. So listen, I want to talk about my other sponsor real quick, Javago Watches. Javago Watches, premium watch brands from around the world. It's influenced by Paris, which is where the brand started. It's all over Europe, Western Europe. It's all over Asia, and it's hit home here in the United States, especially in the metropolitan markets like Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, New York, Miami, Mexico City. I'm telling you, Javago is the spot, and I'm so proud to have them as my primary sponsor. Javago Watches, men's and women's fashions. Go to javagowatches.com. Take a look at their assortment of different styles, different colors, different bands, metallic bands, leather bands. Is fantastic. Jewel encrusted crowns. This stuff is crazy. It's fantastic. So go to Javago, and if you see a style that you like, I will also say cross-reference that and go to Amazon.com, because if you go to Amazon, you may be able to find that same style at a discount, because these are not cheap timepieces. These are beautiful timepieces. Go and get you one. JavagoWatches.com. That's JIVAGO Watches.com. All right. So listen, I don't know if we can do word to the mother today. I don't think we'll do it today.
No, because I want to talk about this guy in El Cajon, Florida, California. They got shot. This guy was having a mental breakdown out there, and police. His sister called the police officer several times and said, "Hey, my brother's having some type of mental breakdown. Can you come and help?" And She said he's not armed. He's just having some mental issues, and I can't get him in the car or whatever it was she was trying to do. And so they show up, and within 30 seconds, I think, of them showing up, he's dead. And I guess he made a gesture as if he had a gun. And all they're showing is the stance in which, he pulled his hands up, and the officer was pointing a gun at him, so he mimicked him and pointed his hands back at him as if he had a gun, and they shot him dead. So, I mean, I just think the police really need to have some different divisions within their organization for mentally challenged people. I mean, you got to be able to talk a guy off the roof, So if you show up and someone mentions on the phone when they dial 911 that the guy's mentally challenged, you got to have a couple officers that show up and know how to deal with the situation. And first of all, again, I said this last week, first pull out your billy club, your mace, or your billy club, your mace, your billy club, your taser, and then your gun. But they're just showing up with guns and killing people dead. And so I just there's something needs to be addressed here.
I feel like I'm tired of even talking about this.
I know, but you can't stop. You got to take a knee like Colin Kaepernick, or you got to do whatever you can to keep drawing attention to it. And since this platform is here and available to us, you got to keep it in the forefront. Folks are dying innocently. Innocent folks are dying, being shot dead in the streets by police officers. It's got to change.
Yeah, it's got to change. And again,
every day
it hurts my heart to have to keep, because it comes off as if you're cop bashing, and I'm not a cop basher. I'm a bad cop basher. Okay, for the poor excuse for those people that have that badge that shouldn't have it. So no, I don't even want to get too deep in it, because I can get real passionate.
But you know what,
that.
Ron?
What's up?
I don't even think these cops realize what is. I think they show up on a scene and they react based on an innate fear of someone that they're unfamiliar with.
The ones that do this is obvious that they have some
and
issues.
I don't think, like this woman that shot the guy in where he had his hands up in Tulsa, walked over to his truck and she shot. I just don't think she really. I don't know how you can murder someone in cold blood and think that it's okay. I mean, she thought she did the right thing. His hands were up, and for some reason, the police force is there's this self. There's this this ability for all of them to really think that.
Don't say all of them, because it's not all of them.
I don't want to say all of them.
I'm saying
when I say all of them, I'm including the ones that are for manslaughter, who have shot black people dead in the streets. What I'm saying is, everybody knows what I'm saying out there. It's not all cops. We know that. So let me just put that disclaimer out there. But there is something wrong with
the culture.
The culture of the police department. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. The culture of the police department that says it's okay to shoot people dead. I mean, shoot them in the leg. I mean, if you go to any target practice, I own a gun. I go and shoot at targets, and there's a torso there. Add some legs or something. We have to start making changes to where it doesn't have to be a kill shot every time. Tase them, hit them with a billy club, mace them, something. But killing people who have families and children, and you're just making a determination whether that person lives or dies, is wrong. You should not. No one person should be given that much power to make an assessment in 30 seconds of showing up on the scene.
I wish there were a way
as to whether or not somebody should live or die.
And the thing is that, again, there are 18 to 20,000 police offices, police stations, police communities around the country. There are hundreds of thousands of, maybe even more, police officers. There's been a little bit over 100 unarmed civilians, mostly black and Latino, killed by police. So the numbers, it's an epidemic for our community. It's a major way we're dying, but it's not all police officers. But I do think, to Woody's point, there are issues with the culture within, because these are still people. And when I say people, I mean the police are still people, and they're subject to the same biases that all people are subject to, depending on their background, depending on whether or not behind closed doors when they're at home and dinner with their family, whether or not their father used to use the N-word, or whether or not they're friends, or whether or not they do. They still have all these different biases and these things that they come to their jobs with, and you can't turn that off when you go to your instincts. You can't turn that off, and you can't train that out of people. What I wish was that we could find some sort of personality test or some sort of psychological exam to identify those that have these certain predilections based on their upbringing, based on things, past occurrences, or whatever, that can let us say, okay, this person has an implicit bias that could possibly result in something happening to someone merely because of a fear, an innate fear. You don't shoot somebody unless you hate them or fear them. I think most of these are fear, in some way, shape, or form, fear. So it's something we got to fix. It's something that needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed right away. And we should just do it. Bring it to the fore like we have. Talk about it, which we have.
Yeah.
And keep trying to go about fixing it.
Only now I think we've acknowledged that there's a problem. And I say we, I mean America. I mean, we've seen an overwhelming amount of evidence that proves that black men are being shot down in the streets. And without video cameras, unfortunately, it just would have been a misnomer. It would have been something that we made up in our heads, or we deserve to get shot. I don't know. But so right now we know what the problem is, and now we have to change the admittance program or process for officers. You can't, there's got to be a screening. There's got to be forced kind of intermingling of officers in the streets. White cop rides with black cop. Talk.
It's more than white. It's more than white and black.
More.
It's more. It's that bias, because I put it like this.
I mean, it's
the guy that got shot in North Carolina.
White and black is what it is.
No. It's black and blue.
The process needs to go a lot deeper.
No, let me tell you.
I mean,
something.
there's a few.
Let me say the guy that got shot in. It's the culture of law enforcement.
I know there's a couple black cops that shot
because
some guys.
Some black cops shot him too. So, but
couple.
Still, the thing is how black men have been demonized. So it's not always just white and black. It's more black and blue.
You have a point.
It's once they put, because if they look for some people, I put like, this is how, when I say between black and blue, me, the way I'm dressed now, when I'm working, I'm doing stuff like I'm in San Francisco, I have a suit on. A same cop that may have an issue with me, even with the suit on and this and the other, then that may be a racial thing. But let's say I didn't have a suit on. Let's just say I had a hoodie on and I had my pants sagging low. Then if that cop would look at me because of that, then that's a different thing. That may not be racial. That may be cultural. That may be something different. So it's complex. But the point is, humans are complex. And so we need to deal with the complexities within these humans that actually have the power of life and death because they're carrying around guns. That's what we need. We need to deal with the psychological effects of that. And also, you reached a good point. Sometimes we ask these officers to be the mental health expert as well. If they are dealing with someone who's mentally impaired, and they don't know how to deal with it, then they could be have fear again, and then that could result in them doing something wrong, like shooting somebody that doesn't deserve to get shot. So they need to somehow beef up their training to include how to deal with mental health people. So
deal with people who have their hands straight up in the air and not threatening you at all just because they're a big black man.
Yeah, well, I get that. That's all common sense. You would think.
You need to. How do you screen? What do you do to that person? Like, what do you do to her to make her more comfortable in the situation? He didn't do what I said, so I killed him.
Yeah,
I mean,
but that goes back to the argument when I said before about those terrible bad actors that are definitely amongst their ranks that they need to purge themselves, and don't be so quick to jump on their side in regards to the officer. At least in Tulsa, once that video came out, they at least arrested her right away and charged her for manslaughter right away. Right. I don't know what happened because I have to wait to see whether or not there's a conviction. But the fact that they moved on it says something, because you don't see the same sort of riots and the same sort of protests there as you do in North Carolina. But listen, guys, we really appreciate you guys calling in. I'm trying to think if there's something I almost forgot. Nanobright.
Nano bright.
Yes, nano bright.
Yes,
Nano-
that's what got you out of your ugly stage.
Exactly. I was 10 degrees of ugly until Nano Bright came into my life.
Fugly.
Now I'm 4 degrees of ugly. And if I keep using it, I won't be ugly anymore. Nano Bright is nutrition for your skin. It infuses your skin with vitamin C and B3, and it's easily absorbed in the skin because it's grind down to microfine particles, and this helps even out skin tone. It helps eliminate sun damage, the damage that comes along with aging skin as you grow older, and any blotchiness. If you have darker spots, especially if you have darker colored skin, you have these blotchy spots, you have to use it twice a day. You have to use it religiously, but trust me, it works.
Yeah, it's really effective.
It really is. My ugly is disappearing as we speak.
It ain't gone yet.
I know it's not gone. Hey, listen, guys. So we're gonna have to close out the show. Thank you for beginning another weekend with us, with Ron Frierson and Woody Wilson, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. We have some great things going on. If you're interested in commenting on the show, please reach us at ronnie.frierson@gmail.com. In the subject line, put in focus. Also, you can listen to us on the UBN app. You can stream us live through Facebook. You can see YouTube. You can see us on iTunes, the podcast. We have like 5 or 6 different ways. Stitcher. We have a lot of different ways to
Facebook.
access. Yeah. So, you guys, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
Also, also, if you're interested in advertising on the show, let that be known as well. We have a couple of advertisers in the works, so we're going to have to start sectioning out the program to make more time for our advertisers because they're constantly growing. If you want to advertise, let me know. Email me. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Peace out, everyone.
Don't drink and drive.
Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of hell.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.